Hello, you guys. Welcome to the Sisters Hermanas podcast. I am your host, Miriam.
And I'm Maya.
This week, we're going to talk about a tragic recent event, the OceanGate Submersible. Have you heard about it, Maya?
Yes, I have.
What have you heard about it?
The main thing that people have died, and regardless of who they were in today's society, it's sad that people lost family.
Well, I guess. But we're going to start off our timeline, which begins on June 18th, 2023. British businessman Hamish Harding, French diver Paul-Henri Nargolet, and Pakistani billionaire Shahdaza Dawood and his son Suleiman Dawood were all on board the submersible called the Titan. Our last and final person on the submersible is the CEO and founder of OceanGate, Stockton Rush. Their mission? To see the Titanic. Keep in mind that the Titanic has been underwater for 111 years. And at some point at our lives, it's going to disintegrate. Some background on the submersibles and submarines. A submersible is very different from a submarine. Some key differences are the ability to stay underwater and the amount of power. With this submersible, you had to charge it after every mission. With some submarines, you do have to charge them, but they do have the capability to stay underwater for months at a time. On social media, they use these words interchangeably, but there is a difference that I wanted to point out, but I digress. At 8 a.m., the submersible was released to start their 2-hour journey to the Titanic, which lies 3,810 meters or 12,500 feet. According to the U.S. Coast Guard, the surface vessel lost communications with the submersible 1 hour and 45 minutes into the descent. I would also like to point out that they were using a Logitech, kind of like a game console like control to go underwater that you can buy for $30 on Amazon.
So kind of like the things we would do at our high school.
Yeah, but we'll go more into how it was built and stuff later, but I just wanted to point that out. Unfortunately, this isn't the first time something bad has happened on the Titan. On the first dive to the Titanic, the submersible encountered a battery issue that had manually attached to its lifting platform. According to an article in the New York Times, this alone shows that the Titan was nowhere near ready or qualified to take such trips. We need to keep in mind that this kind of distance also comes with a lot of pressure. Titanic itself is under 375 to 400 atmospheres, which means it's about 6,000 pounds per square inch under pressure. This is equal to about 46 18,000 pound school buses stacked on your chest. If that doesn't scream heavy, then I don't know what will.
Oh, that's heavy.
Moving on to 3 p.m., the submersible was scheduled to return to the surface, but it never appeared. At 5:40, the Coast Guard receives a report of an overdue submersible with 5 people on board. This is when the media finds out and states that they only have about 96 hours of oxygen left.
Imagine that, like, only having 96 hours to live. Like, that is crazy.
Not only that, but there's like news outlets that were putting kind of like a countdown to how much oxygen they had left.
Not a countdown.
And so people found that very like inhumane that they were counting out to these people's death with under the assumption that they were still alive, you know, because there's this word called an implosion that we'll get into later going around, but let's keep going. As panic sets in, a search for them starts. On June 19th, the US and Canada send ships and planes to look around the area. There are sonar buoys that monitor the area, and that's pretty much all that happens on day 1 of the search. On June 20th, France stated that they were going to be deploying Adelante to the deep dive and search. Throughout the day, sounds were detected at 30-minute intervals. And the reason people decided to pay attention to that is because Paul-Henri, he was known as Mr. Titanic, so he had a lot of knowledge. So people thought that those bangings were SOS, which is why they took it serious. But it was later reported by CNN that it did not sound like banging coming from the submersible. This is what the banging sounded like. So what you think?
That's scary. Like, there's like, I don't even have words to put on how scary that is and how like this could be like the SOS for some people.
Yeah, but even though it was later detected, it's just a thought that they would have been underwater doing that. People were assuming that they were stuck on the Titanic, which is why they were putting the banging sounds, but like mentioned, CNN reported that it wasn't them. Now we're on June 22nd, and 96 hours later at 6 a.m., it was declared that the submersible ran out of air. This one from a search and rescue to just a search. This was under the assumption that they were still alive. There are many statements being made that the Titan imploded. This was the best case scenario. Do you know what imploded means?
No, I do not.
Well, to put it simply, imploding means to collapse or cause a violent collapse inward. Basically, the Titan crushed inward and everyone on board liquefied. Their bodies became fish food. Yeah, so in this TikTok, you're going to hear about a mortician talking about what happens within an implosion.
I'm so glad you asked. My name is Lauren. I'm a mortician and we talk about death and dying on my channel. So if you hadn't heard yet, search and rescue teams do believe that the submarine did in fact implode because they found pieces of it. Multiple pieces. About 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic on the seafloor. The whale recovery team teams find pieces of people down there? The answer is no. And when I tell you their deaths were instant, I really mean it. I'm dead serious. It happens so fast that their brains don't even have time to register what's happening or even sense pain. The pressure is so great that the bodies will liquefy. So no, they will not find any parts of them because they have now become fish food.
That was a lot, huh?
That's crazy.
It may sound horrifying, but on the bright side, if you can say that the implosion was quick. So quick that their brain was not able to process the death or pain coming. That was the best case scenario. Imagine the other option, they would have died. Another way would have been freezing to death or be eaten by any of the species living below. By those depths, we have a giant squid and who knows what else that we haven't discovered yet. So to everyone, this was the best way. Are you still with me?
Yeah.
All right. I know it's a lot, but we're almost done. As we approach the end of the timeline at 2 p.m., there was a debris field that was discovered by the Titanic. Some of the debris found was part of the Titan, unconfirmed though. An hour later, it was officially confirmed that the debris came from the Titan. An implosion happened and there were no survivors. After all this information, let's take a moment of silence. Unfortunately, this was something that was not supposed to happen. After this event, so much information came out and it took social media by storm. OceanGate had their waiver released to the public, the Sun did not want to go on board, and theories around the Titan are intriguing, yet unnecessary for now. To start, I want to focus on OceanGate and their part in this. For starters, this whole expedition was $250,000 per person.
Imagine being that bored with your money. Like,
mind you, we had a father-son duo on board. So one person had to pay the same amount twice. There are articles and videos and memes that depicted everything that happened. But one thing that most of us agreed on, if you signed the waiver, you knew exactly what you were getting into. But again, this wasn't supposed to happen. 2 former OceanGate employees separately brought up similar safety concerns about the thickness of the Titan's hull that were employed by the company years ago, as stated in a CNN article. One of the employees, David Lockridge, OceanGate former director of the marine operations, claimed in August of 2018 court documents that he was wrongfully fired after flagging worries about the company's alleged refusal to conduct critical non-destructive testing of the experimental design. The case was settled out of court, but it just shows us again that the Titan was not ready or qualified to go to the Titanic or the ocean in that manner. Even the director of the Titanic, James Cameron, chimed in and admitted to already knowing about the implosion even before it was announced. In an interview with the BBC, he talks about how he had intel about the situation. Cameron himself has experience and expertise in submersibles, and he has traveled to the Titanic 33 times and to the Mariana Trench, which is deeper than the Titanic. Guess where James Cameron, the director of Titanic, was on 9/11?
where?
He was having lunch on the Titanic during that time. Like, he is an expert when it comes to submersibles. So once he knew about all the information, he knew about the implosion, because that's all you could assume. Either way, this was a tragedy. Within the article of the Express, CEO Stockton Rush stated that he did not want to be held up to international guidelines, which is why he did what he did. Either way, this was a tragedy. As Mexicanas, it's a part of our culture to talk about spirits and ghosts. Como dicen todos, everything happens for a reason. TikTok account Yahoo Australia found a connection with Rush's wife and the Titanic. Are you ready? Her great-great-grandmother, Isidore Stratus, was on the Titanic when it sank. Her husband was co-founder of Macy's. You know that one part in the movie where the 2 abuelitos are holding each other as the boat sinks?
Yeah.
Well, it's an homage to them as they stayed on the boat because Stratus's husband was not allowed to leave because it was women and children first, and his wife chose to stay with him. Mind you, they were married for 40 years. They were the last seen on deck as the boat was sinking. Then there is a ton more videos talking about how it was unfinished business with one of the family members. But I don't know about you, but that seems like finished business to me since the wife's family members did die together. Unless I'm missing something about the unfinished business part. But before we end, let's talk about one more thing. In this case, Solomon Dawood. He was a 19-year-old on board. Imagine how salty, no pun intended, you would feel for going on to an exploration after expressing your fears and then dying of said fears.
Oh my god. It's kind of like you, how you're like scared to fly in planes.
Or like Richie Valens.
Yeah.
Personally, out of all of them, I feel the most empathy for him. His aunt gave an interview saying that he was terrified to go, but went to share this experience with his father on Father's Day. Sounds like his dad was really unlucky too, just like you and Pa. Just for background, Maya had a seizure and flatlined on Father's Day years ago. Jokes aside, most people only have empathy for Solomon Dawood. TikTok account Good Morning Bad News created a video about how people have no empathy for the 2 billionaires on board. This comes from not having a sense of community with them, which makes society feel less sorry for them as humans. Since billionaires use their wealth to distance themselves from communities and hoard and exploit their workers, no one feels sorry for them in this case, with the exception of Solomon Dawood, if that. In the end, this was a tragic situation. There is still information coming out at this time about what exactly happened and at what time everything happened. The main topic right now is who's going to pay for this, but this is something that can be discussed later. I bet you feel overwhelmed now with all this information, but I'll let you process it for a bit. Before we go, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe wherever you're listening. My name's Maya.
This is Maya.
Wait.
Wait. Okay, Maya. Let's go out.
My name's Miriam.
My name is Maya for real.
And this is the Sisters Hermanas podcast. And we are out.